the hell is this that's on the screen right now? What the hell is this? How does this happen?
The loonies at Lucasfilm.
This is the more Kathleen Kennedy mismanagement issue. For whatever reason, this is going on. But Pro, your thoughts?
So you and I talked prior to the publication of my video. We wanted to make sure that what we did covered two different angles of this. And so you had Legal Mindset on. I recommend that everybody check that video out where Andrew of Legal Mindset and Valiant Renegade go through the legal operandus of everything, the machinations of everything that's going on with this, and why that this actually could be successful, why there could be standing here, even if there are not signed contracts on both sides per se. We don't really know that quite yet. But the angle that I took was that I spoke with a source who gave me background information on how this show began and how from the very get-go it was mired in potentially unethical and even anti-C-suite shenanigans. And so this is a source that, I can't say who it is. I can tell you that probably some people on this panel would be familiar with the source. But again, got to be careful. So essentially what happened here is that back during the height of the pandemic, many of the companies out there dealing in entertainment were saying either we'll take a pitch from somebody with an idea for a new show, but it's slow going right now and we don't know what we're going to do. Or some of them were saying we're going to try and do this, from a distance. We're going to do this with social distancing, but we'll take the pitches as usual. And then finally, there were a few companies like Disney that said, we're not doing this right now. We're in protection mode. We're going to try and salvage the current products and projects that we have, but we're not taking on anything new. Disney took that to a new level, though. According to the source that I have, and I actually produced this. Anybody can go watch the video where I talk about the Lucasfilm lawsuit exposed. But I actually produced the document where Disney took this to the next level and said, don't pitch to us right now. If you pitch new ideas to us, there's going to be some repercussions. And what that meant was that you're going to be blacklisted. Don't send us stuff. We don't even have the time to fool with it. At the same time that happened, right? Everybody's being told, don't talk to Disney right now. Disney is trying to, barricade the doors. At that exact same time, Leslie Headland, the former personal assistant, by the way, to Harvey Weinstein, gets to pitch a show to Kathleen Kennedy and is hired to produce said show for Kathleen Kennedy. And that's not all. Not only was I informed that this ruffled the feathers of the C-suite individuals at Disney at the highest levels, and even may have had the effect of a reprimand for Kathleen Kennedy, but also this situation caused lots of people to be very angry at Disney, people inside the industry who are wondering, how is it that the assistant to Harvey Weinstein, who likely, although I can't say for sure, nobody can, but likely knew what was going on with that individual, how is she getting hired at the exact same time that all the rest of us, all those of us who actually are law-abiding and ethical individuals, that we can't even go send an idea in, she's getting hired? And so the next step that occurs is that this show, by all appearances now, according to the information we have via the lawsuit, this show was given a significant budget. It was given multiple seasons planned with long format episodes. And according to the lawsuit, we believe that this thing has gone into production even. Otherwise, this individual, this Miss McCarthy, she would not be able to have standing. She's assuming that the show will come out, and therefore she has been wronged by wrongful termination because she's not being credited. And in addition to that, final thought on this, and by the way, all of this just, well, here's the other unethical thing beyond the Headland thing, which, by the way, why out of all the people on planet Earth, you could go find a hobo on a corner in Chicago and just randomly hire them. And
I'm in Louisiana. There's a dead cockroach under this desk.
Yes.
I'm sure that would be.
Sign it up. It's better than Headland. But the last thing that's super unethical about this, and it gives it away for Disney, I think, and I'm trying to think, this was Culture Casino, I think, was the guy who found this and said, hey, wait a minute, guys. But here's what it was. The fact that Disney, and Valiant, you tell me if this came up in your video with Legal Mindset. I don't remember this. But the fact that Disney gave McCarthy $5,000, which was essentially an insult.
It's a tacit admission of guilt.
That's exactly right, because they compensated her, but I believe they compensated her to insult her, and I think the insult is going to catch them. And here's why I say that, and then I'll hand it over to you.
Yep.
I think it was an insult because she is alleging that she turned down one of the highest paying jobs at Apple in terms of content production.
Yep.
She's alleging that she was in the process of relocating. She is alleging massive amounts of money loss. Remember that EOC we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay? She's alleging
opportunity cost.
Right. She's alleging that because of the way Lucasfilm treated her, that she lost a ton of money. Disney then compensates her for her time with a pittance, a $5,000 amount, when she probably lost $100,000 or more. So I think that Disney, by doing that, this is what Culture theorized, I think Disney put themselves in a bad situation legally when they gave her that money, because it admitted, hey, we do owe you.
Yeah, I think it was a stupid decision on their part if they really wanted to make this go away and act like, well, this wasn't happening. But then at the same time, we could also theorize that because the show is happening, right, they figured, okay, let's see if this will quell her issues with the contract. Disney is, by offering her $1, they're effectively admitting that the contract did exist. That this was an enforceable contract, and they were trying to pay her to go away. So, I mean,
with $5,000, which I know that sounds like a lot to some people, but for this lady, that's not a lot of money.
And the argument from Disney is probably going to be something like, well, they didn't have assigned this, they didn't have assigned that. And that's why I had Andrew on to talk about how, well, that doesn't really necessarily matter in that regard, because if they had made an offering of terms, and that offering of terms had been accepted, which was displayed in, I think, Exhibit A of the lawsuit filed by the plaintiff, Karyn McCarthy and UTA, showing that here's the email. Lucasfilm is saying, great, we want to do whatever we can to make this work. Let's get going. She has evidence suggesting that the contract was accepted, even if there is no final signed copy on file anywhere. Legal Mindset's
if they asserted that she take the action, I think that's where they draw culpability.
Legal Mindset's point was you don't necessarily have to have a signed contract to have an enforceable issue under the law, because if there is an agreement of performance and you can show that agreement of performance was agreed to, and then there was some degree of performance, then you're done. You're in there. And then Disney, I think, compounded that on their own problematic scale by offering her the $5,000, which, again, they're tacitly admitting the contract existed then in that case. Why would you pay anybody anything if you didn't think, well, we didn't have a contract, we don't owe you shit. You know, right. So don't even offer the $5,000. I think that's what opened the door.
And the other thing about this too is, she's, if I'm not mistaken, in this suit, she is requesting credit in the show for her actions, for her work that she at least partook, I guess, for 2 weeks on it, which would indicate to me that she's trying to claim that the show is happening, will come out, and that she's been wronged because she was cut out from a real product.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as we know, let me go back here. Okay, so let's start with.
And by the way, Mike, Mike deals with all kinds of finances. I would love to hear Mike's take on some of this too, about, at what point does he feel like there's culpability on the part of a company?
Well, I mean, the show is happening, and I know Mike and I had a phone call earlier this week, and Mike has some good knowledge related to this story that I know he can't talk about, but I can tell you.
Oh, never mind. Mike, you stay back there.
It lives.
The rabbit chickens need tending.
it lends a lot of credence to what is going on. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is the thing, and this is what I wanted to bring up. So this is Shinfield Studios, December 13th, 2021. Okay? Or 2021, December 13th, 2021, from Variety Magazine. Shinfield Studios, a huge new production facility that has been in the works in the UK now for years. 18 big old freaking sound stages. They had the first 4 ready to roll about a year ago. The Walt Disney Company, right here, according to Variety, the Walt Disney Company was set to be one of the very first, if not the first, client of Shinfield. Now, we all know, going back, if you've watched here, if you follow productions for many studios, you're probably very familiar with the name of Pinewood. Pinewood Studios in the UK is a huge Hollywood, often used studio out there to produce many things. The Star Wars sequel trilogies were done largely at Pinewood Studios in the UK.
And we love Pinewood because they have to tell us what they spent over there. So we love
That's
that
right.
place.
Yeah.
Keep making movies there, please, Disney.
Shinfield is another group of studios. Shinfield was built to be a competitive rival to Pinewood. There are so many big budget productions that are moving to the UK for tax incentives and for what they can offer. This is it. Shinfield is one of these. Disney was one of the first customers there. Guess what? As far as we can tell, the first Disney project that was brought to Shinfield. The Acolyte.
Oh.
The Acolyte. So that is what started production in November of last year, 2022. Slated to and booked is my understanding. I could be wrong, but my understanding is they have the Shinfield sound stages, or the sound stages that they're using at Shinfield, booked from November through roughly May of this year.
Okay, that's longer than I thought. I thought it was April.
About the end of April. I think you're. I mean, it's the end of April to like May 1st.
Either way, same time frame.
Yeah,
But it's substantial.
5 to 6 months worth of, as what's being reported, 5 to 6 months worth of production and filming at Shinfield.
And let's say this too, VR. That's a lot of money to commit to that. To have a brand new
it's
soundstage.
$75 to $100 million. We're talking about outlay here from Disney to complete a project of this scale.
Can you imagine spending this kind of money on this kind of a train wreck?
Oh yeah, and
the most fun fans are going to get out of it is the lawsuit.
Yeah, and B-Spin here. I mean, this is let's talk about some of the. This is what came out. This is at Shinfield.
Go back up to that Wookiee. Go back to the Wookiee. That Wookiee looks like he's into jazzercise. What? I can't take. No, get away. I can't do it anymore.
It looks like a bucket of crap. But here's what I want to call to attention: is the people that are involved in this. I mean, I don't know who Amanda Steinberg is.
Like Hulk Hogan grew a ton of all covered in body hair. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is look, I don't give a crap about this show, but I do respect some of the actors that are involved in this because they have made.
We did until they signed for this.
That looks like a fan film. I'm sorry.
Well, this is like a cell phone shot. Let's. I know, I get it, but look, this is Lee Jung-jae. This is the star of the biggest streaming television series that has ever been, Squid Game. This is Lee Jung-jae. This is the star of Squid Game right here. He's in the show.
And if you're looking at this photo, you're seeing him actually in mid-thought, wondering why am I here?
Yeah. This is Dean Charles Chapman, who's also in the show as a Jedi, apparently, or Padawan. Dean Charles Chapman, probably don't recognize him here. Let me help you out. He starred in one of my absolutely most favorite films. He was one of the 2 lead actors in 1917 that came out January of 2021 or January of 2020. Oscar-nominated picture. I mean, just an amazingly talented actor. And I bring this up because I pray to God that he and Lee Jung-jae were not saddled with a freaking donkey pile of a script, which, considering Lucasfilm's track record, they probably were. They're very talented actors. I hope they have not been put to waste.
Hey, is that Brie Larson on the right side there with the with the gator? No, she's down at the bottom. I see her now.
So, I mean, these are some of their set photos from
Get
December.
away from the Wookiee, man. I can't handle that. That's
there you go.
That's not fair. Somebody call Paul Chatto and get him in here. We got to talk about this Wookiee. Cancel the financial stuff, man. That's awful.
This is some of the other stuff they put out. So look, at this point, from as best we can tell, this is a Star Wars series that is in full production. And that this lady here, Karyn McCarthy, was hired to be a part of this show and was, to this point, as far as we know, inexplicably terminated less than 2 weeks after a contract was offered. And according to the plaintiff's claim in the lawsuit, accepted. That's where we are.
Now, Valiant, so we don't see this with the Star Wars content that goes through Gollum Creations, which is the Jon Favreau stuff, right? And he has massive control. He has James Cameron level control.
And this is some of the outdoor sets, by the way, at Shinfield. This is some of the outdoor sets built, big sets built for the Acolyte at Shinfield Studios in the UK. So,
but we don't see this. We don't see this on the Jon Favreau stuff. Why have people not figured out, though? If it's got Kathleen Kennedy, if it's under her umbrella at Lucasfilm, when have they ever had any kind of production when they haven't screwed somebody over? Seriously, if you're a director, if you're a writer, if you're a showrunner, why would you do this? She will fire one of you, and she will do it in an unethical way, and she will bring in somebody else to clean the mess up. And clearly, based on the way that Wookiee looks, she's found, finally, Gene Simmons and brought him in. Richard Simmons. I'm sorry. Richard Simmons is out there in that gym suit and has grown quite the body hair while hiding in the forest. Valiant, what do you got?
Wait, Richard Simmons is in this? I've been curious.
Well, if you look at the Wookiee, I mean, there's no way. The hair has moved from the head all over the body.
We're sweating to the oldies, kids.
Wookiee to the oldies, baby.
I got nothing at this point. But that's where we are with this lawsuit. I'm again, this is one of those things like we talked about earlier with the whole SVB issue. There's just not enough information yet. But rest assured that like Legal Mindset, this is now on his radar since he's been on the channel earlier this week to talk about this. He's going to be following it. We'll be following it as more things come out. And like I made the joke at the beginning of the video, oh, please let this go to Discovery. Please let it go. It's probably not going to get to Discovery. I get this. People making comments and it's like, it's never going to get there. I'm like, I know that. I said that in the video. Like the chances.
Yeah, the realistic view of this is this is usually the kind of thing we never really hear much about. Usually it never gets much past, early talks or what is it called? Not deliberation. What's it called? Arbitration. Usually doesn't get too far past arbitration. Chances are Disney's going to end up having to.
If there's an arbitration clause in the contract.
A lot of times there are in these things.
Usually
but again, if there's no contract, that's what's kind of this whole thing's about.
That's what I'm saying. If they go to arbitration,
that's the thing
if Disney says that we have to go to arbitration because it's in the contract, then they're admitting that there's a contract.
That's
what I'm saying.
But that could also be a preliminary thing they make everybody sign before they even talk.
No. This would be like, there's nothing here.
My point is Disney will end up paying her out before anything goes anywhere. Right?
Yes.
They'll end up paying her the least amount they have to get her to sign off and say, "Leave us the fuck alone."
It's not just her; it's UTA. It's UTA.
Well, and the funny thing
firm.
there was, and Script brought this up on the same broadcast where we were talking about it, where it was pointed out by I think. You brought earlier, Culture said about the 5,000 was like Script brought up. It's really odd that the company isn't getting behind them, but at the same time, she's using their lawyers. So it's kind of a weird situation.
The firm that represents UTA is involved, but UTA itself is not
exactly. Which technically, in a roundabout way, I guess UTA would still benefit if she does win, then they would get their percentage. But the fact that they're not backing up their client script was like, you know, not saying so much, but like saying it, but in certain ways was saying that they may not necessarily think there's as hard of a case as she does. And again, like looking at this from the point of view of how these kind of cases usually go out, normally, if it wasn't for that $5,000 payout, that is the linchpin to me personally. And I'm not a lawyer, but just knowing what I know about a lot of these ins and outs of how the negotiations go, that's the thing that is a problem for Disney. Because otherwise, this is the kind of thing that normally wouldn't even get that far in court, right? Because they would flat out tell the lady, you didn't have anything signed. So you turning down this other job is nothing to do with Disney unless you signed some exclusive deal with them. You just made the assumption, right, that you had a job. And again, also to get any kind of credit for anything that's in the show, she's also going to have to prove that any of her work was actually technically used, which is another huge hurdle, and that's usually where these kind of cases come from.
Well, I don't know. I mean, not necessarily. I think PGA rules, I mean, she was brought in. I mean, here's the thing. If she can prove that a contract existed and that
that's the thing, is that we don't know.
If she can prove
and that if the term of that agreement, email, verbal, you know, because a lot of these deals happen with agents over the phone, as well as paperwork. And if one of the tenants was that she got EP credit, but it wasn't specified what she had to do for that EP credit, but that was part of the deal, then that's part of the deal.
And that's
we've got some great comments that relate to this. Can I bring them up real quick?
Yeah, no, please. Absolutely. I was going to say that's what Legal Mindset was saying on the video, is that there doesn't need to be a wet signed document out there to prove that the contract had been accepted. And I think that's what the law firm is going
after. They would work with her without some kind of preliminary deal in hand either. So that's
I can't believe they would pay her $5,000 if there wasn't some kind of
deal.
Exactly. That's it.
That's not hush money either. That's the weird thing. Like that to me is like, okay, like Pro was saying, that's either FU money or that was the minimal amount that she had spent on her travel expenses and whatever else, right? Like, I don't understand where else they
hotel and round trip tickets.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We lost Pro. Did we know that?
I think he just had a hiccup. He'll probably be back. He usually says something if he has to go.
There's about only 4 or 5 comments.
Remember chat from Marcus Quintus. For the Renegade level, the highest level of membership here on Valiant Renegade. God bless you, sir. We thank you for being here. Thank you, Marcus Squintus. Good evening, Renegade. Good evening, Pro. Good evening, Mexican Iron Man. And Tom, there is only one thing that will make the Acolyte better. Prayer. Yes, and in this
I don't
Lenten
think that
time,
can save it.
Yeah, in this Lenten time, ask God for help and for forgiveness, because Disney has a lot of that to ask for. Say it with me. Hail Mary, full of grace.
It cut off and it said, please let this go to arbitration or discovery.
Please let this go. Absolutely. Hail Mary, full of grace, Mother of God. Please let this go to arbitration. God bless you.
Well, the only thing we can do is pray that God lets us avoid it in some way, shape, or form.
Rubber Band Man for 5. What is the odds on Iger canceling the Acolyte because of the lawsuit, guys? And why is Kennedy trying to get her hands on Baby Yoda? Canceling the Acolyte due to the lawsuit, 0. Because simply put, look at the math and the numbers. Look at the money. The cost of settling the lawsuit is, no matter what you do, is going to be far less than having to just jettison $75 to $100 million or whatever the hell you spent filming this thing at this point. The Acolyte is going to be on Disney Plus in 2024. So you put it on there, you settle the lawsuit. To jettison a show and throw it into the dumpster fire, it's like, well, let's just light that $75 million, $100 million on fire so we can make. That's still not necessarily going to make the lawsuit go away. That's the problem, because again, it's a pay for play kind of thing. It's like, look, I showed up, you accepted the contract, you said you were good to go. I forewent this other contract with Apple in good faith, and this is the thing, and this is why there's 4 counts in the lawsuit. This is why she's going to have a good chance at probably getting something out of one of those 4, if not all 4 of those 4, is because this was a contract that was given to her and negotiated in good faith. She accepted the contract in good faith. She's got emails and other things to back it up. And that's the issue. So it kind of almost doesn't matter. You know, she's going to be owed, I'll put it this way, she's owed more money more than likely in a court of law will fine for this. She's owed more money than the $5,000 that Disney offered her. Period.
How much more will be the question? And that was the thing I was.
That's it.
Could be a lot more.
If it's $500,000, I mean, the contract would have been. Look at the
yeah.
per diems. I mean, the contract was for millions.
Well, and I think that's why they were pointing this out as this other deal that she turned down, is they're trying to emphasize how big of a deal this was meant to be and what she had turned down because of it and all that kind of business. So that is going to weigh into it, I'm sure. And again, like you said, it could be $500,000, could be $1 million, could be a couple million.
That's always the issue in these type of court cases, is to show not only that there was a malfeasance that was committed, but a malfeasance that resulted in actual measurable, and that's the key term, measurable financial damages from the malfeasance. That's what's going to be fun to watch. That's what Andrew and I are going to keep our eyes on. So, anyway,
and I mean, Disney will probably argue that a lot of it they won't be able to put a monetary value on because it's going to streaming and not to theaters. So,
it's not that. No. It's not the financial damages from
she didn't have revenue
Acolyte.
sharing.
It's from the issue of you negotiated with me in good faith. I accepted in good faith, and I had a contract in my hand from Apple TV for $2 million. I dropped that for you because we were negotiating in good faith, and then you skunked me. The measurable damages from the malfeasance is the $2 million or whatever the hell it was, $1 million, $5 million, whatever it was that she lost from Apple. That's what she's going after. That's where they screwed her.
Right.
That's where they screwed her.
So I was just saying, like, this is not like a movie deal either. Like, it's a situation they would have paid her up front for actually producing or writing or whatever it was that she was meant to do.
Yep.
And
so now,
it would be for whatever a year contract or whatever.
Here's the question. Do we at some point find out, like we did with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, why it is that she was treated poorly? Or
oh, God, I hope so.
I would love to know.
It's going to come out. It's going to come out.
What changed? That's what I want to know.
It's going to come out. And I mean, it could have been, look, I think this is how stupid Disney is. This is how stupid Lucasfilm is right now, run by Kathleen Kennedy. This could have been, and I think I kind of hinted at this before in the video with Andrew, this could have been something as simple as a cat fight between Leslie and her when she got hired.
How much did it cost them to do what they did to Gina Carano? They're stupid.
Boom! This is a Gina Carano moment. I mean, I'm not trying to compare.
Not just that.
I'm not trying to compare Karyn McCarthy to Gina Carano, but I'm trying to compare the situation as this being a knee-jerk, dumbass reaction.
We're not saying Gina Carano was an employee of Lucasfilm. We're saying these are two stupid decisions.
Lord Miller's a better one. Yeah. Because that's the thing, is Kathleen Kennedy is like the common factor here as far as like she has fired more people than have actually worked for Lucasfilm, if you really break it down.
That's it.
I know it makes no sense me saying it, but no, if you stop and think about it, there has been more people fired.
You're right.
And canceled projects or other people brought onto projects after somebody else was let go than have actually produced projects that have actually come out.
Yep. Right? It doesn't function like any other studio I have ever heard of.
Yep.
We've actually heard people who refuse to work with them because of this shit.
Yep.
Like they're like, I don't even want to get in the door because I don't want to deal with everything that goes on there. And from what we've heard, and the Lord Miller thing is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg. And then there was another part of that with the Baby Yoda thing with KK. Oh, she's going to ride that all the way to the bank, right? She's going to take all the credit she can for that. I guarantee you she's part of the reason that baby's back on board. I mean, because story-wise, you could tell if John was ready to move on past that. Otherwise, why the hell would you give the baby away at the end of the second season and then have to give him back in Boba Fett? It makes no sense.
It's a pooch screw. I mean, they brought him back in Boba Fett because they didn't want to have a 2-year hiatus without Baby Yoda, and the toy manufacturers.
I don't buy that.
My opinion, were.
I don't buy that. I think Baby Yoda plus Luke would have sold can you imagine?
I agree.
Well, that's what I said, bro. It made sense. First of all, you could do it on so many levels. You could even have like a little kids show where it's all from Baby Yoda's point of view and Luke's just in the background, right?
Okay. Think about it.
You guys are not even covering the obvious. Why in the name of God would Disney let Baby Yoda go with a white heroic figure when they can put him with a controllable Latinx star that plays the woke game?
Well, you have a problem here also with that.
Listen to you guys for 10, 15 minutes dance around this thing. I mean, that's what.
And then put a helmet on him, Mike.
Why
Don't
not?
let 'em
I
see
I
him.
hate to say it. I saw the greatest meme yesterday. I wish I would have saved it for the show. I'm not a huge fan of Pedro, but motherfucker is carrying Disney Plus and HBO Max on his back right now.
He is.
We'll find out. when the
Well, we
Nielsen
don't
ratings
know
come
about
out.
Disney Plus for sure yet.
Well, that's the only hit they did have. Let's be real.
I mean,
The only hit they did have. You got that.
It's been 2 weeks and Disney still has not come out and talked about the numbers for Mando season 3 yet. HBO and Amazon could not get out of the gate fast enough to brag over Rings of Power and House of the Dragon when they hit. HBO couldn't get out fast enough to brag about The Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Disney, crickets on Mando season 3. This has been by far and away measurably the biggest property on Disney Plus since Disney Plus started. And we still don't have any numbers. Samba won't put anything out. I know they know what the numbers
Poor
are.
Samba. God, they're awful. Oh,
And Michael
okay. So here's
for
Yeah.
$4.99 says that KK set this firing up coincides with her exit window. She is familiar with contracts, verbal or implied. One of her last turds on Bob's desk.
reminds me of Cartman
I mean,
when he did that to Mr. Garrison.
Kennedy would be the one legally most responsible for this, right? No doubt.
But she'll never pay a penny.
No, she won't personally. But again, this is why I'm so curious to find out, what the reasoning was behind this. Because apart from a cat fight, it would have been Kennedy in the first place that would have had to have approved the contract that was being meted out to Karyn.
Well, speaking of
McCarthy.
contract, that brings up an interesting point from Smith Self, who says
For $10, one thing that has been hitting me with this, doesn't Disney usually wrap their negotiations and contracts in various layers of NDAs? Why not apparently in this case? Well, no. So to that end, this contract probably would have been subject to an NDA. The problem is if Disney then terminated the contract and if the lawyers are going to make the argument that the contract was breached, I don't know, especially in California, because they have a very wacky different set of rules. I don't know if the NDA would withstand the scrutiny of law in that case.
And also, does Disney acknowledge the contract exists?
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, I was just going to say, because that's the thing, this is where it brings into question. We don't know what kind of contract there was, because if there was an actual contract, then there would be an NDA, in which case there would also be an out clause for Disney, and she would have had some money paid out in the first place on the contract, I think. So that's where I'm not so sure.
There was
She's
a contract. There was a contract that was attached to the lawsuit as an exhibit, or there was a great deal of information from the contract attached to the lawsuit. There was, to what the lawyers felt comfortable with, apparently there was a lot of redactions in terms of the specificity of the contract, like in terms of dollar amounts and for salaries. They left things in there like per diems and $2,500 a week for rentals for living expenses in the UK and things like that. But they actually redacted the salary that Karyn McCarthy is going to get paid.
And by the way, this is why
that may be part of the NDA issue, to where it's like, okay, we have to seal that, but there may be.
I see what you're saying.
The rest of the contract in and of itself is relatively generic for a contract of that stature in the entertainment industry, and this is me speculating, to where it's like we could release this, but the true sensitive nature of the NDA would have been in the specificity of salary and payment to Karyn McCarthy, and that was redacted.
But this is also why I believe that the money that she was paid, which ultimately may be the reason that Disney has to pay her a lot more, I believe it was an insult. And I love this. I love that they would insult her by giving her an amount that's so low compared to what she would have earned. But the reason I think that's true is because of that per diem you're talking about. There's no way in the world that for 2 weeks of work that the amount owed to her was exactly ending with 000. There's no way in the world that was so that 5,000 is some sort of an estimate that somebody came up with, and I just believe that was made to insult her on the way out.
Oh, that was pulled out of somebody's
where
butt.
it was.
Yes.
Well, where did you get that? Where did you get that number for $2,500 for per diem and living expenses? Because right there, 2 weeks. You just said 2 weeks, $2,500. That's $5,000. Going back to what I said before.
That was.
And if she actually had a contract and they decided to fire her, and it's in their contract that they can fire her at any time, then they're like, okay, fine. You think we owe you something? This is what we owe you for the 2 weeks you were here. This is your working expenses you got. That's it. Boom.
Well, then they would be
didn't
denying that
actually
she did
work on
anything else.
anything.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe she didn't do anything else.
Well,
and
okay,
Kathy's like, well, let's fire her before we got to pay this fucking contract out. Sorry, my French. Sorry again.
That's all right. We're 2.5 hours in at this point. So let me address that. So 2 things to that point, Tom. You're right. Absolutely right. But for the issues of, okay, so the $2,500 does actually come. That was a stipulated figure in the lawsuit itself. So she was going to get $2,500 per week as part of the contract for living expenses, like to rent a flat in London or whatever, okay, while she was out there working. $2,500 per week was going to be the reimbursement. So you're right. It's like 2 weeks, $5,000 here, go away. Maybe she put down a first month rent and she put down a security deposit or something. I don't know. The other side of this is, when you say we can fire you without any warning or all this.
Yeah.
I highly doubt. I could be wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. I don't care. But I highly doubt that UTA and their representation for the 10 or 15% they charge their clients, like Karyn McCarthy, is going to let a clause like that go through in a contract. That's going to be like, oh,
you're probably
go
right.
Eat a bag of right there.
But Script has said that pay or play deals have gone like the way of the dodo.
Yeah, but they probably
at
that level above the line. I mean, if I was the lawyer
She's
in
way
that
up there.
situation, yeah, I mean, it's like, look, it's like sports contracts, right? What do all these running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks want now? What's the big fight in the NFL? Guaranteed money. This is across the board in various industries. It's like, no, you can't just say, well, we're going to pay you $8 million a year to be a running back, but if you get injured, no, they don't want that anymore, right? Wide receivers, same thing out here. It's like, look, you want to fire me, fine. There's going to be an out clause. Look at what they gave Bob Chapek. They fired Bob Chapek 3 months after they renewed his ass, and they had to pay him out $25 million or whatever it was. That's the deal. So in this case, on a smaller scale, same thing. We got a contract. This is what they're trying to enforce in a court of law right now. And it's like, no, you're not giving me $5,000 to walk away. You owe me $500,000, $1 million, something. You cost me a big lucrative job over at Apple TV, who was willing to pay me millions of dollars to come in for a multi-season show. Karyn McCarthy didn't walk away from Apple TV, who is really starting to open the checkbook right now, who has been making lots of Emmy-nominated shows and Golden Globe-nominated shows. Ted Lasso and a lot of The Servant, all this stuff going on out there. She didn't walk away from that thinking that she was going to go over to Disney to fart out a second-tier limited series of 3 episodes. This show was being billed as a multi-season big Star Wars show for Disney+. Now, I realize out there in the ether that there is some argument or some theory or some rumor that there may be, well, it was this, it was that, it was the other thing. I get all that. I respect it. I really do. I'm just, for pure analysis sake at this point, going by, this is what's in the news, this is what we know, this is what the lawsuit is alleging. I'm sticking with things that are at least verifiable at this point in terms of information that's out there in the public ether. So
this is an elite lady.
Yeah.
This is not an average person. This is not an average Hollywood person. This is a lady who is at the very high level. She's not being offered one of the highest paying positions in Apple because she's some rube. And so the idea that she goes over to Disney not knowing how contracts work, that doesn't work with me.
Yeah.
This lady knows what she's doing, and she's got a team of people who really know what they're doing.
Yeah. Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Renegade Online.